All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ward Lundgren from the camera company. I just want to say thanks to Ryan and RØDE for doing this presentation. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're all going to learn a lot. So I don't have a lot to say other than I'm at our Odana Road store, and Tim and I are working from 10 to 4, Monday through Saturday. We're here answering the phone, shipping out orders, and doing printing in our lab. So if you need any help, don't hesitate to give us a call between 10 and 4. We'd be more than happy to help you out. All right, enough of me. Thanks, Ryan. I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Ward. Camera company, appreciate that. Hello, everyone out there. Today, we're going to do, as you know, a nice full rundown of the VideoMic line. I got a quick introduction of our headquarters out in Australia, and then I'm going to go into a few of my mantras, you know, some of my basic overviews for the VideoMic line. And then we're going to get right into it. We're going to dive headfirst into each VideoMic and what's special about them, some of the things you got to overcome with them, and then why we have the options that you have. After that, I'm going to get into some of the technical stuff. So if you have questions, it is encouraged that you ask them, but we'll probably go ahead and save those at the end. I'll probably have to call Ward back in and have the questions kind of read off there as well. But just to give you a heads up, we're going to give you the technical stuff at the very end of this presentation too. So if you got a few questions on, say, a roll-off or what a safety track does, I am going to go through that thoroughly at the end. So keep that in mind. After that, we're going to open up for everybody to ask their questions as they would like. So without further ado, my name's Ryan White. I'm the US Product Specialist from RØDE. I cover the whole US, just teaching everybody about RØDE and what we do and what makes it special. So anything from retailers to end users such as yourselves. After that, RØDE, as I was saying, based out in Sydney, Australia. Been doing this for a long time. It was a Friedman Electronics before that. And anything RØDE that you touch is going to come out of this warehouse right here in Sydney. We're trying to keep everything as affordable as humanly possible while keeping the quality as high as humanly possible. And they do an amazing job with that. So nothing coming out of any other place but that warehouse right there. Today, with the VideoMics, like I said, I'm going to start with some general info. This is an overview, my opinions, some of my experiences as far as how to handle microphone tech, and the VideoMics especially, because there are so many options. These are general rules for using a VideoMic. So a little bit on this page, but what you should know is for the most part, the VideoMic line is condenser microphones. They're all going to require some kind of power. So batteries are a must, power from the camera in some of them. And unless RØDE tells you, it's pretty much mono. So I get a lot of confusion from some people about, you know, the VideoMic RØDE being a stereo microphone or otherwise. No, it's not. It's very much mono. And my general rule of thumb is that mono VideoMic line is going to primarily be for dialogue. Don't get me wrong. You can absolutely use it for music or B-roll. But professionally speaking, I would like a stereo microphone for music or B-roll. And if you don't know, the B-roll would be the secondary shot. So if I'm the person being interviewed, I'm the A-roll, and I would be the dialogue. And then the secondary stuff outside of that, cars passing by or the scene in which you're in, the theater, whatever it is going to be your B-roll. So you're going to choose these based on application first and foremost. And then the reason we have all the choices inside the VideoMic line are to give you options. You can have a friendly budget microphone with less frills, as I call it, and a more expensive microphone with more buttons, more selections, things to do with that microphone that can help you get rid of sounds that you don't want in your recording. So a couple mantras that I always do: it's not about how far from the microphone you can get. It's definitely about how close you can get that microphone without ruining the shot. So I have a pod mic right here in front of my face. I'm in my office studio, and it's not perfectly treated, but it doesn't do too bad. And this is a dynamic microphone that's really, really close to my face. So the whole goal is to knock out as much of any of the ambience or something happening down the hallway or otherwise by doing that. That's true for every VideoMic you get and pretty much audio in general. So it's about how close you can get that without ruining the shot. After that, as a professional, it's pretty easy to capture me. I'm putting this microphone right in front of me and it's close to me. That's fairly easy. I set the levels and then I'm recording. After that, It's about getting rid of the stuff that will be bad, will be detrimental or distracting to your customer. In the case of video mics, putting them on top of your DSLR, having a lot of noise, or getting 10, 15, 30 feet back is going to introduce the room into it as well. So in order to get rid of that stuff, you have to use a few techniques, use a lot of the features that are on the microphones and et cetera to help you out a little bit. Couple things that I kind of generalize. Again, we have a lot of choices here in the video mic lines, and I don't mean any insult to any of this stuff when I say beginners that don't want to think about audio. What I'm talking about are the people who want a plug and play solution. They don't necessarily want to think about a roll off. These would be things like parents, you know, the kiddo's soccer game, or just the kids running around doing a quick little vlog or something like that. You put it right on top of the camera, plug it in, and you're ready to record. And it will instantaneously upgrade your audio quality. And we'll get into the differences between those three here in a little bit. After that, professionals or prosumers, or any of the words that you want to describe, it can be a beginner that wants to eventually get to a point of using the buttons and the options that are on the microphones. So up in the higher side of this lineup, video mic all the way up to the NTG and the Pro Plus, you're going to have more options to deal with, and you should get those microphones if you're looking to use those options. And I will also throw stereo into that as well, because that's going to be it's going to be more technique. You know, you're going to capture ambience, and just going to be a lot more audio coming into it. Not only that, it's going to be stereo, so you have two signals instead of one. So your mono microphones here to the left, every single one of those are one capsule going out one place. If you have any questions about the cabling, yes, it is stereo. They just split that signal right down both of them evenly, and then you can hear that on playback. In stereo, you actually have two microphones that are going to go to a left and a right, which will then allow you to manipulate those separately later, or to actually hear it the way we hear as humans, which is in a left and right image. I ran out of room in my presentation here, but I got a little asterisk down there below, says stereo video mic and the stereo video mic X. Those are all solid options inside of the Pro lineup with the stereo mics as well. So good places to start. So after that, we got the video mic lineup. So first and foremost, it's going to be your video micro. You'll notice at the bottom, I'm going to have a few bold things, and then actually to the right, as we advance through the line, I'm going to have some other things. Bold will be things that are new to that microphone, and then not bold will be either one that was already in a previous model or something that is a small talking point. So video micro, first and foremost, very crucial. It does need power. As I said, they're condenser microphones, and so they need power from the source. So you do have to qualify your camera, your phone, or otherwise to have power to that microphone. These are directional, and I'm going to talk about polar patterns at the end of this just briefly. Biggest conversation is shotgun versus just unidirectional. And directional, in this case, is a cardioid pattern. It does not hyperextend out in front of the microphone like a shotgun microphone. It's a wider image. It's going to capture a little bit more of what's going on out in front of it. That's meant to be affordable and a nice general overview of what's in front of your camera. Can't get as close, or you can't get as far away from that source necessarily, because it is cardioid pattern. Again, what I say, no frills, right? This is just going to plug it right onto the camera. You're going to use it to whatever professional level you can. If you get an extension, if you get a boom pole, you can get that microphone as close as you want, and it will be perfectly acceptable. You just have to go through those steps to make that happen. So in that vein, the Video Mic Go. This is an upgrade from the Video Micro in that it is hyperdirectional. So directional versus hyperdirectional. If you're a nerd like myself, that's going to be supercardioid or hypercardioid versus cardioid. So this one's going to be that pinpoint accurate. So out in front of the microphone, it's going to be a little bit more narrow. Cardioid's going to be a little bit wider. So you're actually trying to pinpoint your source. This is an excellent dialogue microphone. It's why we see these all on boom poles and so forth, to isolate that one person talking and get on with the job, right? Hyperdirectional equals shotgun. They're synonyms, just industry name that we gave it, right? Requires power just the same as the Video Micro, and still no frills. That frill that it has is the directionality. So if you're looking to isolate from the sides, Video Mic over the Micro. If you're looking for general usage, the Video Micro might be for you as well instead. Video mic regular, still hyper-directional, but what we added here was a battery. So if you do happen to have a camera that doesn't provide power, but it has an audio jack, or if you're on something that is older, that's a common thing there where before people started realizing some of the manufacturing of the cameras decided to start putting power into the device, which is called plug-in power. We had to supplement some of our microphones. So a little bit more expensive, but a 9-volt battery. Over on the side, you're also going to see the fact that it has a pad and a roll-off. So again, we're going to talk about this tech and I'll have a visual for you, but think of the pad, stands for pre-attenuation device. It turns the whole volume down, whereas a roll-off gets rid of the low frequencies. Wind noise, air conditioner rumble, various things like that. We use a lot of adjectives in this. All you need to know is that we have a couple testing we do a testing on it that we've kind of generalized, and then that gives you a visual for how it compares to other microphones. Again, I'll show you that here in just a little bit. So you got a pad now, you got a roll off now, you got a battery now, and you're still hyperdirectional. So that is the end of what I like to call kind of the beginner range where you don't want to think too much about audio. After that, you start getting into our Pro lineup and the VideoMic Pro, NTG, Pro Plus, and into some of the stereo microphones as well. Still have a battery. This one's going to be a 9-volt battery. It is still hyperdirectional, still a shotgun, still mono, and you're going to add what is known as a preamp on this. So most people confuse this. If you go back and remember my mantra, it is about getting the microphone closer and not about having more volume. So if I was saying the pad is turning it down in overall volume, the preamp is now turning it up in overall volume. I like to use the analogy of the TV remote. Everybody kind of understands that. You turn it up, you turn it down, the whole volume. With the preamp, instead of just being able to get farther away, which is, I guess, a secondary benefit, if you turn up noise, it's just louder noise. So the mantra still stands. But what it allows me to do is turn down the camera. So if I go into, say, a Canon 5D or something like that, it will turn down the camera to, say, 1, boost the microphone up to 20, ton of gain. And then that will allow the microphone company, the audio company, to do a clean boost on the microphone before your camera even has a chance to touch it. Little disclaimer here, you have to have your audio passing through the camera somewhere because it's your recording. So you're going to have to make sure that your camera is either at 0 or 1, but still recording. If that is clipping out, if you're hitting too much volume, too much level, then you would back the microphone down to 0 and then fine tune the camera. It's about minimizing the camera's influence on it, not about getting farther away from the mic. Same deal here, VideoMic Pro Plus. Gonna be a little bit more expensive, but it's gonna add all of the modern features that you're gonna expect from the VideoMic line. Digital switching, multiple roll-offs, so more frequencies are gonna be reduced. You still got your pad, you still got your preamp, and the digital switching is just a relay throughout the microphone. And now we introduce things like the safety track, a rechargeable lithium battery, the whole thing inside of this microphone is meant to optimize your workflow. It has automatic power function, so it's actually going to turn on the microphone with the camera when you have that engaged. When you turn the camera off, then it's going to turn off. So it's going to save your batteries if you accidentally leave it on, and it's going to keep you from accidentally forgetting to turn the microphone on. It's still a robot. I always joke and laugh with everybody to go ahead and check it, but it is a nice feature to make sure that you are in fact recording. I've fallen victim to that long before I ever worked for Rode with my VideoMic Pro, so it's a nice feature. Brand new to the VideoMic line, the VideoMic NTG, and this is going to be the workhorse. Just every single thing that you can think of, and I will actually start at the bottom of my list on that, and that is a USB microphone. It now has both entities. It is a USB microphone for your computer, and it is also a standard analog microphone for both your phone and for your DSLR. As you'll notice on the list, and then also in the image, you have a TRRS to TRRS cable, and then it will self-detect whether or not that is on or off. So if you plug into your phone, your Apple dongle, that's 4-pin, it'll recognize the 4th pin, go ahead and use that 4th pin. If you plug it into your DSLR, which defaults TRS, it will actually recognize that that final pin is not there and shut it off. Now you can use it without even needing to worry about the adapters or otherwise. Still got your roll-offs. You got high frequency boost, safety track, pad. You do have a couple new features in a variable gain knob. without getting too crazy on that, and I'm going to show you in the tech, it's going to go from negative infinity all the way up to, I believe, 15. That's not its gain rating, but that is a number. You know, turn it up to 11, turn this one up to 15, and that's going to give you anything from mic level to headphone level. It actually is the headphone distribution for USB microphone, and then you're going to use that to hone in your camera audio instead of using a plus 20 dB boost. So you have it on there, you just now physically get to do it. One of the coolest things about it is you can do it in real time. So instead of actually hitting a button that will instantaneously drop it down, I can just roll it back. So if I'm just a little bit too hot, I can just back it up just a little bit. So it gives you full control now, instead of going into your camera, changing something or pressing a 20 dB change. You have full control over that, which I just think is awesome, both in setup and live in real time. So that is the full rundown for the mono microphones. After that, stereo doesn't have much other than the stereo video mic, and then the stereo video mic pro, and then the stereo video mic X are going to have that same kind of stair step between them. Your stereo video mic is not going to have the boost. The stereo video mic pro is going to have the boost. So you have the preamp. And then inside of this, like I said, it's a dual directional microphone. It's cardioid pattern times 2 in what's called an XY pattern. So it's left and right, one going left, one going right. And then that is going to go down the lead into stereo image in your camera. So same thing with the stereo video mic X, but you're going to get all the digital switching, the multiple roll-offs. You're going to get a heck of a build quality out of the stereo video mic X. And you also get options for XLR on that one. So professionals can absolutely strap into that one and be very, very happy. So big fan of all of these stereo mics. And remember, music or B-roll is typically the application you're looking for there. So if you're doing concerts, you're going to jump headfirst into stereo video mics. Now, my favorite part, because I am the mic geek, the video mic tech info is going to kind of run down the features of all of these microphones and why they matter. So when I said directional earlier, if you're looking at this, this is the top view of a microphone called it's a polar pattern is what we call it when we're referencing it, the lingo. And it's talking about where the microphone picks up and where the microphone doesn't pick up. So when you're talking about a cardioid video micro, this is what you're looking at. It's 100% on axis right in front of the microphone, and it's 100% out of axis, or the null point, on the back of the microphone. So if I want to get rid of sound without changing anything but the directionality of my microphone, I just put the back side of that microphone to the bad noise. I say put the bad noise behind it, right? So this gentleman that's actually holding out a vlogging rig, he's pointing the front to him, obviously, 100% on axis. The back of that is probably pointed towards some ships or some boats, something noisy that he's trying to reduce. So as a director, you want to also think of your polar pattern to help you minimize the problems. If you got a train whizzing by behind you or an airplane above you, point the back of that microphone to those things, and it will instantaneously help you reduce those noise. It's about getting rid of the bad as well as capturing the good. So shout out to dual cardioid as well. Stereo is going to be the same polar pattern, but times 2. Hyperdirectional, the bread and butter. It is the industry standard, but it does not mean it's the one you should use every single time. The reason we use this so readily is because dialogue is number 1 in audio. If you can't understand the dialogue, you're out of the story. So on axis, 100% in front of the microphone. But you'll notice that there's 2 null points to the sides, more the back side. So about 30 degrees off the back side is our null points. And this is 360. So when you have a microphone, you're actually going to be getting that null point back here all the way around. The 2D representation of that polar pattern there is just that, 2D for paper. And if you imagine it like kind of a balloon being pressed into a microphone or something like that, you can kind of visualize the whole polar pattern. This is a cardioid microphone. It's all the way around here. As I just stepped away, you probably heard it reduce. That's the same thing. So hyperdirectional shotguns, full on axis. So with these, you're going to want to put the bad noise to about 30 degrees off the back of it. For the cardioid, put it directly behind it. Microphone features. This one's going to be the pad. So what I said, when you turn the whole thing down, it's going to be a flat. So when you're 0 or unaffected, you have the 0 mark there where it's not dotted line. The dotted lines are going to be each stair step down in volume. So on many of the Rode microphones, you got a -10, you got a -20. So that -10, -20 is going to turn down the whole spectrum as we hear as humans. From that 20 to 20,000 is about this far, right? And again, it's just a spectrum that we use as a reference point in hertz. And the low end, I like to use the analogy of like a kick drum, subwoofer. You know, you hit it, you hear that and feel that. Those low frequencies are so full of energy that they're very detrimental to sound. So that being said, a roll off is going to roll those off, sometimes called a high pass filter because it's letting the high frequencies in, getting rid of the low. Why does that matter to you? You step outside, you got an air conditioner running or something. The first step, because that audio is so detrimental to what you're going to end up on your final results, we give you the roll off to turn it down before it ever even gets into the camera. So when I'm doing dialogue for all of these video mics, I always have the 80 hertz roll off on, 75 hertz roll off on, because human voice doesn't really get down there. Plain and simple. If you're doing stereo, you're doing like a concert or something like that, music, it definitely gets down there. So it's an artistic endeavor, but at the same time, I start in dialogue with that roll off on. If you hit the pad as well as the roll off, you're going to, as you see in that visual, you're going to take the roll off with it. It's all turning down, but your low frequencies are still reduced down to 0 as you go down the spectrum. So very cool features, very important features. Then the preamp does the exact opposite. Takes the roll off with it, but it turns the whole thing up by 20. Remember, it is not necessarily to get farther away from the microphone. If you're in a good space, sure, you can get farther away from it. But the whole purpose is to reduce the influence of the camera into your audio. So you want to make sure you have all of that set up prior to where you can actually get good gain into your camera. Gain being said, you're going to want to turn your cameras to manual. Plain and simple, because the auto feature is going to be automatically turning it up and turning it down. It's going to sound noisy. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, and it's just going to be very distracting. So manual is where it's going to allow you inside your camera to turn the volume up or down for the camera, not for the microphone, for the camera. Now the microphone is going to run from the back of it into the camera, and then the camera is another stage. So you want to turn your, say your 20 dB boost up, and then turn the camera down to, in this case, this is Canon, -40 there is just a reference point. This is what's called the digital spectrum, and up at 0, you're clipping. Red, you're dead, as we like to say in the industry. And that's where you get that really noisy distortion and so forth. You want to turn it to manual, adjust that level up and down till you get to about 80% of your meters. And then you're going to have good audio right through your camera. So it's a relationship between the two and what you do. After that, you got the safety track. The coolest part about the safety track, something we used to do professionally with 2 microphones, was set one up and one right next to it, and then one was quieter than the other. The reason was if something happened to the left one that was kind of our main audio, we didn't have a backup. So we created a secondary microphone for the backup. This actually has it built right into the microphone, where the left track of that stereo output is full volume and the right track is down by 10 dB. If you look at the white dots inside of that image, that's showing you pretty much what it looks like. 12 is at full volume, and then the negative, I don't know, 20, -15 is going to be your right side. In post, it takes a little bit of editing. You just have to grab the right track, individualize it, solo it up, mono, and pull it into the center, and then turn it off. And then the left track, if something happens to it, then you go grab that right track and replace the bad audio. Safety track. It's there in case something goes wrong, but now it's just built right into the mic. All right, Ward, that is what I have for everybody. I did see a few things popping up here.
I learned a lot. That was excellent, Ryan.
Thank you so much, sir.
Was that loud?
No, you're good. Let's see.
Okay.
I have a notification here for chat. Excellent. So please describe pad and roll-off from John Glowacki. John, if you could respond there, man. Did you get that from those visuals? Do you have a few more questions on that? I do see that pads reduce the signal level to avoid overloading or clipping, right? Turning that down. Well, Ryan says, good name, by the way, Ryan, and that was awesome. And awesome, thank you. So yeah, John, if you, I'm good, thanks, says John. Anybody else out there that has any questions as we wrap up? I see can I plug my entire entry-level Rode into my iPhone 8? With the correct adapter, yes. So Rode does actually take the VideoMic and turn it into an iPhone microphone. So 8 is going to have the lightning port. That's what I have. So you're going to want the VideoMic Me L if you're plugging directly into the phone. If you're not plugging into the phone and you want options from the Video Micro, you're going to need what's called the SC7 from Rode, which will take 3-pin, 2 4-pin, and then allow you to plug it into your iPhone 8 dongle. So I actually plug mine into the 1/8" to lightning port to actually make that go into the phone. Excellent. So Ryan, let me know if that answered that question for you. And then we have, can you elaborate a little bit more about TRRS and TRS? So on that same level, first and foremost, the industry as it stands right now. Now, this is always a read the manual situation. So when you have TRRS, it's most likely a smart device, your iPhone, your iPad, your Android phone, your laptop, your Windows. Sorry, I apologize. I don't have that. Just the tablets from Windows. They're going to be TRRS. If you're not familiar with that, that's tip ring sleeve. And all you need to know from an important level is that it's giving you bidirectional information. Microphone in, audio for your headphones out. At the same time, same jack, all that. That's all it is. They just added another pin. So when I plug in my micro, that is a TRS output, just like we were telling Ryan. When he tries to go over to a smart device, he has to make that a smart device. The TRS application by default, as it stands today, is going to be for your DSLRs and your external recorders. So when you're going into those external recorders, they're still just TRS because they're not needing bidirectional information, right? If you have a camera that has a headphone jack, it will have the headphone jack as well. So you go TRS in and headphone out. Whereas with a phone, they just made one jack do both jobs. So you have to be aware of that and make sure your signal flow actually caters to that. Excellent. Ryan says, thanks. Is there a visual difference between them? Absolutely. So 3 pins, when I say that, is the gold connector. Try to remember back in, 3rd grade science class where gold was the connector, conductor, and it's moving electricity. When we're talking analog audio, we are still talking about voltage, and we need a connector to make that audio pass through. So you're looking at the gold connectors. A common misconception I have is that the black lines that are separating that are the connectors. They're not. You're counting the gold, not the black lines. The black lines are isolators. They're insulators so that the voltage doesn't pass through. So you're going to count all the gold lines. So when you're visually looking at a TRRS cable, you're going to see 4 gold connectors and 3 black lines. If you're looking at a TRS, you're going to see 2 black lines and 3 gold connectors. I had to visualize that the whole time I'm saying it. Make sure I say it right. Excellent. Be sure, one disclaimer here, guys, you want to make sure you adapt that appropriately from TRS to TRRS. If you don't, and Rode has an amazing lineup, just go look at the smart cable lineup, the SC lineup from Rode. We got you covered in most applications. After that, it's making sure that your input is going to be fully connected. There you go. I see an SC7 on somebody's camera. That looks like a 3-pin, 2 4-pin, and they're comparing it. Love it. I just saw a new question come through. What is the best way to eliminate wind sound? Windjammer. So in one of my more in-depth classes, I like to talk about accessories from boom poles to windjammers, and windjammers have a stair step as well. When you're not using any foam or anything, you're in a studio. There's no wind protection whatsoever. The foam is for inside. You're just moving around slightly, but you're indoors. Fur, so one of the dead cats all the way up to the next step would be the blimp, you're going to actually knock the fur. So the fur knocks down the energy of that wind. Then the foam absorbs it, and then it can go to your microphone. With a blimp, you have the fur, what's called the dead wombat lovingly. The fur is going to knock down that energy. And then the blimp itself has a cage around the microphone, which is about 2 inches of dead air. That's insulation. And then it still has to travel through your microphone. So you have 4 steps that you can use your microphone. So if you step outside, you need a dead cat minimum, because any amount of wind is going to be detrimental to those low frequencies we were talking about. After that, you're going to use your roll-off to be very objective to that. It is an artistic endeavor. The roll-off, like I said, with dialogue, I engage it. 80 hertz roll-off, our voice doesn't get down there. You'll notice on the NTG and the VideoMic Pro Plus, very, very artistic endeavor in that there's 150 and 80 and 75. I think it's 75 and 150 on the Pro Plus. So you're going to start with 75 for dialogue, and then 150 would be for detrimental spaces like a really heavy wind, or I like to use Comic-Con as kind of my example. Yeah, 400,000 people running around a concrete reverberant situation. You want to roll off all that jabber. So 150 is going to be artistic. So what I like to do is set 150, record, set 75, and record. And whichever one sounds better to you in that space, that's the one you use. Cool. So hope that answers that question there, John. Definitely a windjammer. How far should I be while recording? How far away should I be? That's going to very much depend on your positioning. Oh, sorry, in your room. So right now I'm in a small room. It's something we call a shoebox as a joke in the audio industry. It's really fast reflections, but they're quite loud in unprotected rooms. So it sounds just, I don't know, warbled, or there's a bunch of adjectives that we use to talk about this, but you want to check your room. So if you're in a gymnasium or a church, two of the most reverberant places in the world, if you don't get that microphone right up next to their face, you will absolutely hear that room. You can't get rid of it. There's plenty of plugins out there that try. They do a great job, but why depend on that? You want to record it perfectly first, and then when you run into problems, then you depend on the software to actually do that. So to get rid of reflections, first and foremost, you're going to move closer to the microphone. On an average, you're just vlogging and you're trying to record people. And if you're into the camera, so you're tied to the camera, then I understand that you can't always be within 5 feet, right? Because the camera's attached to you and your framing's not going to work. So you got to back it up, but you're going to set up your frame and then position your microphone accordingly. And then if you're in that place, let's say you're outside interviewing somebody and you can't go away from the camera, it's just a quick shot. Now you're going to depend on the preamps, the roll-offs, and those different things to customize your sound the best you possibly can. If you're outside, best news for you is that there's no reflections like there are in a room. So if you're in a gymnasium, there's no solution. You want to be 5 feet or less, otherwise you will absolutely be hearing a gym. Excellent. Hope that helps, Sri. Now Ryan comes back, says, do you suggest any YouTube channel resources for learning more about how to use Premiere Pro, Audition to work on audio I'm getting out of my micro? So excellent. Thanks, Ryan, for your commitment to Rode there with your micro. Compressors and how do I use it? I like to go back to, you need to make sure everything's captured properly. I think that kind of goes without saying, and I'm sure you're saying that. So getting that microphone closer, making sure that preamp level is set up right, maybe using a safety track if you have, obviously your micro doesn't have that, but getting that microphone closer is going to give you better, more pristine audio. So once you get into Premiere, you're then going to have the ability to use it. Right? You got to get good audio before you can let Premiere manipulate it better. Premiere's amazing for all of the noise cancellation that I was talking about earlier, de-reverb, noise cancellation. Those are the two that I use the most. Definitely the hiss and the hum. So I would definitely try to keep that in mind, that you want to record it better. YouTube channels for Premiere Pro audio, I apologize. I don't, right off the top of my head, let me actually, if I can real fast while I move on to the next question, I will get this page for you. And if anybody wants to reach out, has some further questions for that, you can always reach out to me at ryan.white@rode.com. And if you follow up with that, Ryan, I actually can just send you a few of my favorites, and that might be a little bit easier way to handle that. Bear then asks, what about wireless solutions, or is that another class? Definitely another class. No problem, Ryan. Definitely another class. Wireless falls into the space of no wires, right? So there's a downfall to that. If you don't know, wired connections are actually the safest, the highest quality, the best. But wireless very much gives us flexibility. It untethers us from the camera. So again, I can move that microphone closer to my mouth and still get away from my camera so my framing is right. Professional audio is always and forever going to be off camera, meaning I'm the audio engineer, you're the videographer. You go do your camera thing, and as long as I stay out of your shot, I can do my audio thing. So that is why we created wireless. That's what it's meant to do. Is if you're a run and gun person, you can just plug our wireless Go receiver right on top of your DSLR, and then that microphone goes right onto the lapel, right? So now you're as close to that condenser microphone on the chest as I am in front of this pod mic right now, sitting in my office. So same thing there. I like options. I like redundancy. Apologies for being the guy who sells the microphones, but still, it doesn't take away from the fact that I will have, professionally speaking, a wireless microphone on, say, a newscaster. They might also be holding a Rode Reporter for a dynamic handheld microphone, and then I'm going to boom it out as well. If you're doing this professionally, options and redundancy are crucial. So Ryan earlier said he had a micro. If I can get a wireless Go as well, guess what I'm doing? Plugging both of them in. I will have both of them running in case one goes down, but also in case one sounds better. I mean, honestly, if you have two microphones going on and then that train or that noisy airplane or whatever goes by, maybe one of them has a better signal flow. Maybe one of them has a different directionality to where it's a better quality. So I now have two choices to pick from as well. Like I said, back in the day, you'd set two microphones up. One was quieter than the other so that you had those options. It's still to this day a very important thing. So wireless allows you to do all of that stuff ready and go. No pun intended. Anybody else have any questions? How are we looking, Ward?
Looks good. I wish I knew just like a tenth of what you do, Ryan. You are a very knowledgeable guy. Really appreciate what you've done for us here. That's awesome.
17 years, baby.
Yeah.
Excellent. John says, thanks. Good presentation. All right, everybody. Ward, I think if everybody's good, like I said, I do not mind at all. Ryan.white@rode.com if you're interested. Always Camera Company is ready to take your calls and your questions down there as well, right?